Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Miriam Goldberg Owens, who serves as president and CEO of the People's Music School. Miriam, welcome to the show.
It's such a pleasure to be here. We love being on Arts Engines here.
So I am just so excited. We, of course, have such a wonderful partnership. People's is amazing. And I thought just as we just start off, many people know the work that you do, but for anyone in our audience who doesn't, you just give us kind of that quick overview of the kind of scope and breadth of People's.
Absolutely. So the People's Music School is Chicago's oldest and largest 100% tuition-free music school. We provide intensive tuition-free after-school music instruction that is focused on eliminating the barriers to accessing high-quality music education, and in particular, the benefits to that music education. So we serve about 720 students across 4 different sites here in Chicago, and we have been around since 1976.
It is awesome. And obviously such a legacy of impact in Chicago, but also kind of the standards of the way in which you approach your work that just goes nationally or even internationally, and that many people look to. And so I thought actually what would be great is if we could kind of focus on one aspect of how you go about that work, and that relates to partnering with schools. And so there are many in our audience who are at organizations where they either work with schools, partner in different ways, and sometimes those are successful, sometimes not so successful, et cetera. So I was wondering if you could first just kind of share how you approach and what's the breadth of your school partnerships. And then I was going to kind of follow that up by asking about what are any of the key strategies and or best practices that you utilize to approach that work.
Yeah, this is a great question. So as with everything, I always want to start by grounding in our mission, which I think is very instructive about how we do the work we do, what we should do, and even what we shouldn't do. So what we say in our mission is that our mission is to deliver access to the benefits of high quality tuition-free music education. And so what I like to say is that the very first noun in our mission is access. And so for us, that means everything that we're doing is in service of making the work that we're doing more accessible for those benefits of intensive music education. So we've been around since 1976, and we have been formally partnering with schools in the Chicago public school system since as early as 2008, 15 years ago, at Hibbard Elementary in Albany Park. Now we have 3 community sites in addition to our flagship site here in Uptown, which is the only building that we own. But we find that physically locating at schools in the communities that we're serving make it possible for students to access our programming. So the oldest example of that is at Hibbard, which started as the Rita Simo Youth Orchestra in 2008, founded on the principles of El Sistema. And that program has grown over time to encompass today about 130 students with an intensive after-school program. Most of those 130 students go to Hibbard Elementary, and we find that being in the schools where students are make it possible not only for them to attend the program, but to persist over time. And it also forms an important part of an identity of that school. So I actually spoke a little while ago with a parent at Hibbard Elementary in Albany Park who shared with me that the reason why she chose to have her family live in that neighborhood was because of the orchestra that has been there for so long. We also have 2 sites on the south side of the city. So on the southwest side and back of the yards, Lara Elementary, and we have our greater south side located at Wendell Phillips Academy High School. And for those sites, because the nature of Chicago is that many, especially South and West Side communities, have experienced significant disinvestment, significant depopulation, which means that there are a lot of schools that just don't have that many students. It's not uncommon to find elementary or even high schools that have, 100, 200, if you're lucky, maybe 400 students. And that size of a school is not always large enough to support a really robust after school music program. And so the way that we think in particular about those two sites is that we're forming a community music hub that is supporting students from the broader community in which we are. So one, significant example of that is our Greater Southside site, which is in the neighborhood of Bronzeville at Wendell Phillips Academy High School. We have 155 students out of that program. It's been the fastest growing of all of our sites. Out of those 155 students, that represents 62 different schools from around the Greater South Side in Chicago. So we think of ourselves, and by the way, most of those 155 students would not be able to access the programming that we're providing, but for us physically being in that community. So we see school partnerships as an essential mechanism for doing the first noun in our mission, which is providing access.
I absolutely love that. And obviously illustrating that, it's so key in terms of course, creating that impact through that access. So what I'm wondering is that there could be those in our audience who are like, okay, oh my gosh, you're right, that's amazing. I totally see the impact. So, but on the ground level, working with schools, are there any kind of core principles that you incorporate as you engage with a school and to be able to maintain that relationship over long periods of time, which clearly you're able to do? I know there are some organizations, they work with a school for a couple of years, and then either the leadership of the school changes or something happens, and then all of a sudden they don't have that home in that community, or the partnership ends. Or so just wondering, are there principles that you found of partnering and or the approach in which you partner that has enabled such sustainable success, providing that access over extended periods of time?
It's a wonderful question. And, principle number one is the principal, is the administration of the school. So you raised that sometimes there can be school turnover. And so it makes it especially important for us to work with schools that have really strong, stable leadership that are creating fantastic school cultures inside their own schools. And also, perhaps most importantly, recognize that what we're doing is not just, a service that is happening that exists separately from the school community. We work with administrations. We're very fortunate to work with really amazing school administrators, Hiliana Leone at Hibbert Elementary, before her, Scott Allman at Hibbert Elementary, Paul Schisler at Lara Elementary, Holly Caldwell, and Rashad Talley at Wendell Phillips Academy High School. All of these amazing administrators understand the value that our program is providing, and the fact that we are not something separate, but rather need to be wholly integrated into the work of the school. And that is as tactical as, parking, but also even as big picture as involving us in their end of year celebrations and making sure that their families that enroll in their school know about our program, elevating us on social media, all of these kind of small and big ways. But the most important thing is that the administration of the school thinks of what we're doing as an essential part of their school community, because we see what we do over time. And in fact, Principal Leon from Hibbert Elementary was kind enough to provide a really fantastic quote for our end of year annual review. She says, "I stand witness to the profound and transformative impact that the People's Music School has brought to the lives of our students and the entire Albany Park community. The presence of TPMS in our community has been nothing short of a catalyst for positive change, enriching the lives of young individuals and their families alike through the power of music education." That is the mindset that we want to have for a principal that we work with.
That is, and I can see how the way in which you approach this work, it brings about that type of true collaboration, true partnership. And I think there's just so much that so many of who are watching the show would want to emulate in their own programs. So it's truly phenomenal work. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time. But I always like to ask of all my guests, this work, there's got to be tougher days. There's got to be days when the partnership isn't flowing as smoothly, and or somehow there are issues in terms of impact relating to students or faculty or any of the things that teachers, things that you're working on. As a leader, do you have a best practice or approach that you find this is what helps me the most as a leader during the toughest of times?
I mean, I'm so fortunate that we're a school, so it's the kids, just seeing the impact that it has on them, hearing the stories, seeing it in real time. One story that I want to share that I think is fantastic and shows the value and the impact of what it is that we do, with our first noun of our mission being access. So Back of the Yards in Chicago is a heavily Latino neighborhood, lots and lots of immigrants. We have a program manager there, Ariel Garcia, who is a fully fluent bilingual educator and runs the program. We have a student there who's a trumpet student, a first-year student named Luis, who just immigrated to the city probably a month ago from Mexico. But for our program being there, Luis would not only would Luis not, be, he has right now, because of the work that we're doing, this amazing community of students that he's working with, that he's with every single day after school. He's also becoming one of our most promising first-year trumpet students. And this is somebody who immigrated to the United States a matter of weeks ago, and we are there in the community, ready to support him, ready to instruct in his language, ready to support him with a community that's specifically designed to provide that access to make sure that this is a program that's successful for him. And so whenever it's tough, and there are many, many tough days, I think about students like him and the work that we're doing for all of our students.
Miriam Goldberg Owens, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for all of the amazing work that you do, leadership you bring to our field, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Aaron.